John's got $1 million in one fund, SCHD. The fund nobody really gets excited about. Safe, reliable, the one that's supposed to just sit there and behave. So the question John is sitting with is kind of an odd fit for a fund like this. How long before that million becomes two? In this video, John invests that million into SCHD. I'll show you how fast that happens and introduce you to a simple rule, the rule of 72, that lets you work it out for yourself with any investment amount. In the end, I'll show you the exact year SCHD doubles that million into two and how SCHD can match the most popular fund on the planet while still paying over $60,000 a year in dividend income. So what is SCHD exactly? Well, SCHD holds just over 100 big American companies, names you'd know, like Coca-Cola, Chevron, Verizon, Texas Instruments. And it picks them for one boring reason. Each has a long record of paying dividends and raising those dividends. So here's the part that trips people up. Most people shopping for a dividend fund chase the biggest yield they can find. The highest number wins, right? Well, not really. A fat yield that never grows is just a number standing still. Picture two funds. One pays you 4% but never raises it. The other starts at 3% but bumps the payout up every year. Give it a few years and that 3% fund is writing you a bigger check every single year than the 4% one. And the gap just keeps growing. The 3% fund kept climbing while the other just sat there. So how does SCHD score on that exactly? Well, look at its dividend grade. Straight A. 14 years of raising the payout every single year. And over the past decade, that dividend's grown about 10.43% a year, against roughly 6% for the average other funds. The rest fills in fast. A 3.22% yield today, share prices growing around 9.23% a year, and an expense ratio of just 0.06%. On $1 million, that fee is $600 a year. It's basically a rounding error. It's also one of the most heavily traded funds out there, so getting in or out is never a problem. And it's not just me calling it solid. The rating on the whole fund comes back a buy. Now, out of all the numbers, that dividend growth rate is the one doing the real work down the road. So if you're wondering where all this is coming from, the grades, the growth history, the ratings, it's all from today's sponsor, Seeking Alpha. And that's just the tip of what they offer. They've got a stock and ETF screener based on whatever you want, and their alpha picks have beaten the S&P 500 by 325%, and over the last year, by 72%. If you want to get all of this, their summer sale is on right now, and if you use my links down in the description or in the pinned comment, you get the best discount out there, 25% off premium. If you want their stock picks as well, the alpha picks and bundle links are right there next to it. So back to John. Here's his starting line. He puts the full million in. Year one, SCHD is projected to pay him $32,200 in dividends, about $2,683 a month landing in his account without him selling a thing. And the account itself would sit at $1,124,500 by the end of that first year, including both the dividends and the capital appreciation. Up $124,500 in 12 months. Not bad for the fund that's supposed to be safe and boring. So how many more years until it's doubled? Turns out you don't need a spreadsheet to get close, you just need one piece of math. Here's the trick. It's called the Rule of 72, and it's the fastest way to figure out how long money takes to double. You take the number 72 and divide it by your yearly return. Whatever you get is roughly how many years it takes to double. That's it. And here's why this matters for you, not just John. It doesn't care how much you start with. $1 million, 50 grand, $500. The doubling time comes out the same. The only thing that changes is how many zeros are on the end. So if your number isn't $1 million, run the same math on whatever you've actually got, and it still works. Okay, so let's point this at SCHD and John's situation. The share price is projected to grow about 9.23% a year. Run that through the rule, 72 divided by 9.23, and you land at just under 8 years to double. 8 years. And that's the boring answer. That's the answer if you treat SCHD like a regular stock and ignore the dividend that it's paying you and the dividend growth. But John's not ignoring the dividends. He's reinvesting every single one, and that changes the math entirely. So here's what reinvesting actually does. Every dividend SCHD pays, John just buys more shares with it. More shares means a bigger dividend next time. And a bigger dividend buys even more shares. It keeps feeding itself. Then there's a second thing working in John's favor. The companies in the fund keep raising what they pay out. So even the shares John already owns start handing him more each year. The money grows two ways at once: more shares and more from every single share. Now, here's where most people get SCHD wrong. They file the dividend under, well, that's a nice little bonus, pocket money on the side. The real action they figure is the share price, but it's actually the other way around. Reinvested, that dividend is the part doing the work in the background, buying more of the fund every quarter while John sits there doing nothing. He's not adding a cent of his own money. The fund is paying to grow itself. That's the engine the rule of 72 left out. 8 years was the share price grinding away alone. Feed the dividends back in, and that timeline gets a lot shorter. How much shorter? Well, I'll show you in a couple of minutes. And in the end, you'll see how SCHD can match the most popular fund on the planet while still paying over $60,000 a year in dividends. Before the finish, one more thing to keep your eye on: the check. Most people watch the balance, the big number climbing. John watches something else: what the fund actually pays him while it grows. And this is where SCHD splits off from a pure growth fund. A growth fund would hand John a bigger and bigger pile, sure, but the income coming off of it barely budges. You'd be sitting on a fortune on paper, with a dividend that still couldn't cover a car payment. SCHD runs both at the same time. The account grows and the paycheck grows on the same clock. Year one, it's paying him $2,683 a month. The real question is what that number looks like by the year it doubles John's investment. Let's run it out. We know year one, the account would sit at $1,124,500. Watch what happens from there. By year two, it's projected to be around $1,264,935. Year three, $1,423,403. By year four, it would reach $1,602,286, and by year five, the account would sit at $1,804,292, knocking on the double door. And then, year six, $2,032,497. The million is now $2 million in just under 6 years. That's about the time it takes a kid to go from kindergarten through 5th grade. The fund that was supposed to just sit there doubles John's money, and he never lifts a finger. Now look at what it's paying him. That check that started at $2,683 a month, by year 6, it's projected at $5,139. It nearly doubles as well, right alongside the account, exactly like a dividend growth fund is supposed to. And here's the proof of the second engine. Across those 6 years, the dividends John reinvested add up to $273,845 fed back into the fund. Here's why that number is the whole story. Strip the dividends out, and the share price on its own only gets John to about $1.76 million by year 6. Close, but not doubled. That last $250,000, the dividends he reinvested and never touched, is what carries him over the line. The share price does most of the lifting. The dividends do the part that actually matters, which is impressive. But I can already hear the objection because it's the one that comes up every single time. Why not just buy VOO? Fair question. VOO is the S&P 500. 500 of the biggest companies in America all in one fund, and it's even cheaper than SCHD at 0.03%. It's probably the single most popular investment on the planet. Ask about anyone where to park your money, and odds are they say VOO. So let's hand VOO the same million and run the exact same race. And I'm not going to dance around it. VOO wins the race. It crosses 2 million a little past year 5. Call it 5.5 years, a few months ahead of SCHD. It even ends year 6 a touch bigger. That's just what the S&P does. It's a growth machine. And SCHD was never trying to beat it at that. So basically, if the only question is which one doubles faster, VOO takes it, clean. Except that was never really the question. Look at what each one pays John along the way. By year 6, VOO is handing John about $14,078 a year, roughly $1,173 a month. SCHD, that same year, $61,669, over $5,000 a month. For every dollar of income VOO pays John, SCHD pays him 4.5. And the gap isn't holding steady, it's widening. Year 1, it's about 3-to-1. By year 6, it's 4.4-to-1, and still climbing, because SCHD raises its payout almost twice as fast as VOO does. But here's the thing about everything you just watched. John started with $1 million. Most people don't. So what if you don't have anywhere near that? That's the next video.